Hello, beauty. I am Jennifer Schmidt coming to you as Divinely Jennifer, and I'm here to talk about the Scorpio lunar cycle and some of its main themes, which really is all about, all boils down to power. And when we give up our power, if we give up our power, it means that we can also reclaim it. And so I'm going to talk about the energy of the entire lunar cycle versus just the new moon in Scorpio. And it's intense, and I'm sure I'm going to offend someone. I encourage you to listen with an open heart, not to take what I say personally, because it's not personal, my friends. It's not. It's an expression. What I'm doing here is an expression of what I see through the astrology, what I see, what I'm channeling in the cosmic energy right now. And I hope that you can use what I'm going to say in a way that serves the highest good within you and for all. So again, it's not personal. I don't want you to dive into the shadows and be like, Jennifer said this, because that's not how I mean it. Yesterday morning, I got an email from a friend who was like, oh my God, where's your astrology forecast for the Scorpio eclipse? I can't find it anywhere. And she's right. The new moon in Scorpio, which was a partial solar eclipse, was yesterday morning, at least at the time I'm recording this, at 3:48 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Get used to that. I'm going to be using Mountain Standard Time from now on. How beautiful. We do not change time. It is always the same. I love that. Or 6:48 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the last new moon in daylight savings time here in the U.S. for a few months. And as I said in my last video, this Scorpio new moon heralds a time of deep transformation and change. Actually, not in my last new moon video. I said in my last video, if you haven't seen it yet, called And So It Begins. Talk about how this change is coming. And to be honest with you, making a forecast video or any type of write-up hasn't really been a priority for me. While I've been channeling an abundance of messages, oh my gosh, with the dreams, please stop being so intense, about the Scorpio eclipse lunar cycle, as well as the months ahead. Fasten your 5-point harness. I kind of let the actual sharing of a forecast go until my friend emailed me. She was like, help. Letting go is definitely one of the themes for the Scorpio lunar cycle. Let it go. It's just impermeated in us now that we have that song in our being, even if we haven't seen that movie. But in true Scorpio fashion, it's much deeper. It's much deeper than letting go like a Disney song where you can sing and dance through the ice and then all is good. Now, sure, you may be inspired to get rid of some old clothes that you don't wear anymore or clean out your junk drawer while listening to Disney tunes and singing along. That's all good. The divine always welcomes a little Marie Kondoing in our lives, as well as some singing and dancing. That's always welcome. This lunar cycle in Scorpio wants us to let go at a much deeper level. So I'm going to dive into the energy of the entire cycle rather than just the new moon so that you can take this with you throughout the lunar cycle. Because this lunar cycle wants outright surrender. It wants us to let go of addictions, codependent situations, or anything or anyone else that holds us back from standing in our power and sovereignty. And when I say let go, I don't mean you're out of here, I don't ever want to talk to you again. It's not like that at all. It's different. And I'll talk about that. Sometimes it does, you got to give them the boot, but not always. And these situations and relationships tend to sneak up on us. In general, it's not boom, we're in a codependent situation, or we are relying on someone else to give us something without giving something back to them. That can happen in rare situations where it's like that boom feeling. Usually a codependent situation develops slowly and over time. When we feel like we absolutely can't live without someone or something. I remember when I was following this one astrologer a few years ago, and it totally threw my life off. I was totally thrown off that she took a break for a few weeks from her weekly astrology podcast. I mean, how was I supposed to live my life without having a blow by blow and a breakdown of the energy for the week? I mean, it wasn't like that in the beginning when I could listen to her podcast and think, ooh, that's cool. My dependency, you could even call it an addiction, developed over a couple of years. What I didn't realize, though, was that I was giving up some of my own power by relying on her podcasts. I mean, I can totally laugh about it now, but at the time, I was literally scheduling my week around listening to her podcast so I could take notes from it and notate everything in my calendar. The truth was, I didn't trust my own inner compass, and instead, I relied on her compass to tell me how the week was going to go. Starting to trust my own inner compass was one of the most empowering things I have ever done for myself. It didn't mean not trusting the astrology. And yes, I still notate the astrology in my calendars. I have a couple, and encourage others to do so as it fits with your life. But for me, trusting in my inner compass meant trusting myself in what I was seeing, feeling, and experiencing in the energies around me. Codependency has become so prevalent in our society, in our world. The Scorpio lunar cycle, this entire eclipse season, is a beautiful opportunity to examine the places in our lives where we're dependent on others and we also enable others in various ways. Oftentimes, we think of codependency being the result of addiction. For instance, the spouse of an alcoholic will enable the alcoholic to continue on with their addiction. The spouse or the partner of the alcohol sacrifices themselves in all sorts of ways, sacrifices their own well-being so that the alcoholic can keep on being an alcoholic, instead of the person enabling calling them out on the carpet and saying, yo, it's me or the booze. And we see that with marijuana, alcohol, all sorts of substances where we can actively see this addiction being fueled by a codependency. Unfortunately, though, codependency is much more insidious than that. It weaves its way into our lives like a sticky spider web, or it's like kombucha. I don't know if you like kombucha, people usually love it or hate it. It takes time to ferment sweet tea into a magical elixir. And it takes time, it's sweet tea and then this blob, this kombucha blob, the SCOBY, as we like to call it, of bacteria and yeast. And the tea relies on the SCOBY to make kombucha, and the SCOBY relies on the kombucha to ferment and to stay alive, to feed it. So codependency can breed resentment, anger, and frustration. Again, very, very slowly and insidiously. Not only in the person who is perceived to be carrying the burden for the other, also known as the enabler, but also the person who is being enabled can feel those energies and emotions build up too. And they tend to sit buried really deep, Scorpio, or it's deep. And they'll sit there until someone cannot hold it in anymore. Then there is a big blow up and either things change or they don't. And if they don't change, then that resentment continues to build and ferment. One of the ways that this Scorpio eclipse season can support us is to help us question how we rely on the resources of others, whether we rely on their financial resources, their wisdom, or even their cooking skills to nourish and nurture us, instead of relying on ourselves and our own resourcefulness first and foremost. We may also need to look at the ways that we enable others to rely on us, usually inadvertently. I know from pretty recent experience myself that looking back at how we might enable or rely on others can be painful. Oh, it's like a punch in the gut. But awakening to these patterns can transform us out of a pattern of addictive codependency into a rebirth of sovereignty. In a nutshell, you could say that codependency is the shadow side or the very low frequency side of Scorpio, and that sovereignty is the higher self. It's the highest frequency of Scorpio energy. Scorpio is all about power, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Shared resources. This is where the resources come in. It's shared resources or wealth, financial collaborations, partnerships, sex, and ultimately the transformation of death into rebirth. And can't have rebirth without the dying, the letting go piece, right? It's one thing to share our resources from an empowered place. It's another to share from a place of fear, especially fear of rejection or loss. In that space of fear and rejection, the enabler may ultimately be sharing and giving in order to manipulate the person or the situation into staying with us, right? Into not rejecting us. Likewise, the enabled person might be afraid to acknowledge their reliance on the other for fear of being rejected because of it. So it kind of sits there and festers, this codependency. It just keeps building and building because of this fear. Sovereignty, on the other hand, is a beautiful, beautiful amalgamation. It's the alchemy of freedom, power, and abundance. Our decisions, when we're sovereign, our decisions are made from a space of open-hearted awareness, of free will combined with unconditional love and trusting our own prosperity and well-being. I know, it's a tall order, isn't it? Oh yeah, we're in the middle of a recession and we're supposed to trust in our own prosperity? I get you. I did not say it was easy. The Scorpio lunar cycle may take us to our knees. This is the surrender piece. You're just not going to be on your knees being like, what the hell, universe? Come on. Coming to terms with all the ways we give up our power, usually because of fear, as well as the ways we may attempt to take power from others. We make them the victim, usually because of fear, can open a deep wound of shame and self-loathing. You may, as you're making these discoveries, and because you're going to make discoveries this lunar cycle, you got to be super asleep, not to have these awarenesses and these awakenings. It's just simply the energy of this lunar cycle. It's transformative at such a deep level. And you may be tempted to beat yourself up. Get this image of the medieval priest laying prostrate on the cold cathedral floor and like whipping himself, right? That self-flagellation. You don't have to do that because Scorpio is also mystery and magic. Instead of hating on ourselves, this eclipse season invites us to surrender to the deep magic and mystery within ourselves, to the resources that our unique gifts can provide, if we're willing to partner and collaborate with those gifts in a way that feels good and brings us joy. In true Scorpio fashion, the universe is asking everything of us right now. There is no compromise. While it's one thing to meander and pause here and there, go outside into nature, take a breath, take 17 breaths, sit out there, do a cold plunge, do a hot springs. All those pauses are necessary. We're not meant to wander aimlessly through life without purpose. So the pause also has to have purpose. So often we let our fears get the best of us and we give up our power because of those fears. Get real about what is transforming within you and within your partnerships and collaborations. You can run, but you cannot hide. Then get creative about how to share your magic with others. See the beauty in yourself and in others, even when and especially when you struggle, seeing beyond the corruption and vanity so pervasive in our world. And let me tell you, this election season in the US, it's really hard to struggle to see beyond the corruption and the vanity. But that's what this lunar cycle is asking of us. This is our initiation. How much love can we tap into within ourselves as a direct response to what's happening in the outside world? You may have to let go of relationships, clients, people, and situations in your life that can't match or meet you, can't meet your vibration as you're rising. And that's all part of the transformation. I'm part of a mastermind and we're in circle and we're all like, what is happening? What's happening to our marketing and our lists and our sales? And because we're all up leveling so much. I lost 10% of my list this weekend. It's was it that bad what I said? I don't know, but I think it's just because I'm shifting and changing so much. I'm making these quantum leaps that people are releasing themselves, or they don't resonate with where I'm at anymore because they haven't risen to that themselves yet. Or maybe I'm just got the wool over my eyes and I'm totally in the barrel right now. I don't know. That could be it too. What I do know is that we are past the tipping point of awakening and birthing the new earth, this beautiful world that we're coming to. It may take a few more years. I think it probably will take a few more years, just even based on the astrology, but it's coming. We're past the tipping point. We're in the vaginal canal. Our heads are getting squeezed and we're being birthed. We're being pushed out. Focus on the synergies and the serendipities that you see, that you're experiencing. The way one of my soul sisters always texts me when I'm thinking to myself, I should call Patricia. She literally always texts me within a minute of that. I'll be thinking of her within a minute. My phone does its little chime and there she is texting me saying, hey, when can we connect? How's it going? I love the humor in it. You got to see the humor because the humor reminds us of the magic that exists simply from being human. We get away from the seriousness and into that humor because Scorpio can get serious, but find the humor. Have faith in the divine energy that weaves us all together and the deep love that connects us all. There's so much more that I could say about this Scorpio eclipse season and the lunar cycle, and yet I want to allow you space to find your own delightful magic in it all. As always, I am happy to provide some insight through the magic that is your divine natal blueprint. And for the time being, you can still book a reading with me at www.divinelyjennifer.com/sessions. And I'll put that in down below. In the meantime, know that the universe always has your back. Know that this chaos is temporary and transitory. Know that you are meant to share your gifts with the world in your beautiful and unique magical way. And know that I love you. I'm Divinely Jennifer. Have a beautiful week.